Alright, joining me now is an MMA bantamweight fighter who takes on TJ Laramie at Hard Knocks 50 on June 17th. Please welcome Brad Katona back to the show. Brad, how's it going?
I'm doing great, man. Training's going absolutely perfectly without a hitch. So, yeah, I'm really happy to take the time to talk to you again.
Yes, absolutely. Pleasure to have you back on the show. First off, I spoke to you right after your win over Josh Rich earlier this month or earlier this year, this past March at Prestige FC 2. Afterwards, how did you celebrate that decision win over Rich?
I didn't have much time to really get in like a nice holiday or big celebration or anything. I pretty well just took time, got to focus on school for the time that I was off, which was pretty well perfect. I kind of fell behind a little bit, taking about a week off from classes just to make it out there and cut weight and stuff like that. So pretty well after the fight, it was playing a little bit of catch up, as well as just cranking down the intensity and training a little bit, just enjoying it, enjoying everything for once, enjoying learning again as opposed to so much focus and refining. So pretty well, I just ate good food and got to train as well as, I guess, grind away at some schoolwork, which I guess isn't the best way to celebrate.
Yes, definitely. Now, let's talk Prestige FC 2, their event. Overall, I thought it was a pretty good event. Top to bottom, it was a really stacked card for a Canadian regional card. Overall, were you happy with the Prestige FC as a company?
Very much so. They put on a very nice card. It was a pleasure to fight for them again. Both the events will run very well. They started pretty much on time and ran the fights as smoothly as possible. The only thing I would have changed would be to be on the main card, so it could get televised.
Yes,
But
no kidding.
I just missed my spot. I was a little disappointed in that. But besides that, I was thrilled to be on the card again, and yeah, I absolutely have nothing bad to say about them.
I know there's no real benefit when it comes to this card being in the featured prelim spot because in the UFC, obviously, lots of like the promoters will say, "Oh yes, being the last fighter on Fox Sports One prelims, you'll get big numbers." But in this case, it's real no benefit whatsoever being that featured prelim fighter.
Yeah, absolutely. All it meant was, um, it would just be nice to be like they were airing it live on the Fight Network, so that would have been nice to be a part of and for people back home to watch. Thankfully, there was a small stream for Fred the family, so they got to see it. But even then, I think I fought very well, and I am very happy with my performance. So it would have been nice to get as many eyes on that as possible.
Have you actually been able to find video of the fight with Josh? Josh, have you been able to go back and watch it, or are you still dating to this day?
Still trying to find tape of it. I haven't been able to stumble upon anything. I need to contact the promotion again and really see if there's any opportunity, see if they have any tape. But I'm dying to see the fight. Really, it's the first time I've gone to decision in my MMA career, so I'm really curious on just how I fared throughout the fight. I felt great, but video never lies. So when I see myself and see how much I slowed down, if I started getting sloppy, and just areas in which I could work with coaches to improve upon, it's always nice to have that video.
Yes, absolutely. Now, this is going to be your fourth pro fight with Hard Knocks. It's going to be your first appearance with the organization. How did this deal come together with Hard Knocks? And right now, is it just a one fight deal?
First off, yes, this is just a one fight deal. I'm looking forward to potentially working with them in the future. I've heard nothing but good things about all the fighters from our gym and other fighters who have competed on their cards. I hear they run a very professional show, and they kind of have to continue having the success that they have been having. So I'm excited to be on the card, but the deal kind of came about just naturally in the gym. I was training, I knew they had the big 50th card coming up, and I really wanted to get on it, and they were looking for exciting matchups to put on. So my coach just offered me TJ Laramie, and I guess that's what the promotion offered, and it was just the perfect opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. Now, TJ Laramie is quite the opponent. Not saying casual fans will know of him, but a lot of hardcore fans know who TJ Laramie is. Just give me your thoughts on fighting.
You know what, I said this before, and I think it's really, both of us have a little bit of steam in the bantamweight division, where we've both been coming up quite quickly. I know he had a small little hiccup with his split decision loss to Vince Murdoch, but you know, what can you say about a split decision against fighting an American in the U.S.? You know, you never know how tight that decision really was. I haven't been able to watch the fight, but I'm sure all I've heard is he felt very well in that fight. So I'm expecting a tough TJ Laramie, but you know, it's certainly an opportunity for both of us, because it kind of shows who's the number one up-and-coming prospect at this weight, at least in terms of, you know, the younger athletes.
Do you think a win over TJ would be the biggest of your career?
For MMA-wise, most definitely. It's kind of going to be the one that's going to skyrocket me into the higher level of competition. Not taking away from anybody that I fought so far. A lot of them have been quite successful in matches afterwards. I know my first opponent, he just picked up I think a first round submission win. So most of the guys I've fought so far have been doing well. All I know is you know, TJ has a bit more hype behind him, and being 3-1, potentially or arguably 4-0, you know, it is that step up, and also what he's accomplished as an amateur, definitely a at least on paper step up in competition.
Do you think fighting Jesse Arnett for the Hard Knocks bantamweight title would be next with the win over TJ?
You know, that's very, very intriguing to me. Always we're looking at to get to the top in our division, no matter what organization. Being my first fight, I don't know exactly how they feel about that, but you know, I know what my skill set's at, and I'm very confident in pretty much any matchup in the bantamweight division in all of Canada. So I feel I'd absolutely hop on the opportunity for a title fight if it was offered.
Ultimately, how do you feel you match up with Laramie?
I think I match up great everywhere with him. You know, I think my hands are some of the best in the bantamweight division, and I know he has quite the experience with his kickboxing and his striking as well. He definitely has power with picking up a first round knockout that quick, but you know, it's just, once again, I think my striking's just at a different level, and my overall game is just more dynamic. It's that next level. He's trying to kind of mimic some fighters in terms of the movement, but I still don't see him having quite the skill set and the experience that I do.
Now, the bantamweight division is pretty strong in Canada. One of Canada's deepest divisions, in my opinion. You have yourself, Sean Quinn, Jesse Arnett, as I mentioned, Laramie, Eamon Zahabi, who's definitely UFC bound as well. And that's just to name a few. Is there anyone on your radar with the win over Laramie if you don't get that title fight with Arnett, or, of course, ideally, if you don't get signed to the UFC?
You know, I'm just looking at taking as many big names as I can, and until I get the notice I think I deserve. Not saying I've done all that much in the sport yet, but with the win over TJ Laramie, you know, that puts me at 4-0, and then you know, one or two big wins, no matter who they are. You know, there's no names that I specifically want to call out. You know, there's many great fighters in Canada, like you were saying. So really, the options to me are quite bountiful. There's a lot of top guys I could look at taking out next, and you know, just continue that rise until I get the phone call while kind of chasing.
Yes, that's kind of what I was going to ask you about. I know you're young, you're still relatively experienced MMA wise, but how far away is that UFC call from coming? In your opinion, it's not really unrealistic. If you do get that call in one or two more big fights, because look at Cody Garbrandt. He got signed in early last year. he was 5-0 or 6-0, and you're not far off from that. And look at where he is now. So how close do you think you realistically are from that UFC signing?
I completely agree with you. I think after this win, especially with whatever opportunities they have, if they have anything in Canada, that might open up some more opportunities for me to get in there a little earlier, maybe after one more fight after this. Um, if not, I see after Laramie taking out a big name or two, and hopefully that garnering the attention I need to kind of make them take notice. Because as you said, Canada has quite a bit of talent. It's just going to be making myself stand out from the pack. So I think with my skill set, as well as being a younger fighter and being undefeated, that definitely plays a role in what they want. Just like you were saying.
Yes, definitely. Now, let's discuss the MMA scene up here in Canada for a little bit. Firstly, how big of a hit, in your opinion, was Georges St. Pierre stepping away from the UFC sport back in 2013?
I don't think Joel St. Pierre hurt Canada's MMA scene all that much with him stepping away, because right now what we're lacking somewhat is regional shows, and Joel St. Pierre was never a part of that. I think MMA is still very popular, and in Canada, it's just the opportunities to fight on the smaller shows getting built up. That's the only part which is kind of lacking. So I don't think Joel St. Pierre necessarily played that big of a role, because all the MMA fans that Joel St. Pierre brought to the scene, I believe most of them are still fans of the UFC. Some were more specifically to him. He definitely had his fan following, but we're kind of looking at hopefully getting another star or two in there, and that bringing another new set of eyes as well. So I think Joel St. Pierre was good for pioneering it, but right now it's more on the regional scene where we need work.
Yes, I agree. The major issue is definitely a lack of shows on the regional circuit. Why do you think that is the case? Why do you think we're not getting hard knock events every week or every 2 weeks? Why aren't we getting prestige more often? Why aren't we getting other organizations? Why are there only shows a few times a year?
Uh, I That's a tough question to answer. I think it plays into a couple of things. First off, I think our regional shows, we had a lot that were going on in a lot of oil towns, kind of ones built around the oil business. So I think when that got hit with the current economic situation, that kind of played a role. Those guys, most of them were males in the 20s and 30s. That's the prime viewing audience for mixed martial arts. That's kind of what they're after. So with those guys being out of work and not being situated in those smaller towns, it definitely hurts the business for these smaller organizations. I know, well, at least with the first McMurray fires and everything there, if Fort McMurray was doing even worse, besides the fires, predating the fires last summer, with the whole oil crisis, I think that definitely hurt some of our smaller shows, as well as maybe, I can't speak because I've never promoted a show, but, I think the commission should work with them and make possibly a little bit more. Maybe it's a commission issue. Maybe for whatever reason, it could be pricing and stuff like that, because by the time you get your show regulated, that's driving up costs of it. So I think what we need is kind of, what we have right now is some consistent shows like Hard Knocks, because they found the audience, but it would be nice to have a couple people taking a risk and not trying to put on the most extravagant shows, just trying to put on quality local shows and build local fighters. You need someone who's going to be invested in some locals, because those are going to be the draws for these regional shows.
Yeah, the thing with the Canadian MMA scene, specifically the Canadian local MMA scene, is that it's kind of a full circle in the sense that there's a lack of regional shows, but there's a lot of regional talent that just isn't being showcased on these regional shows.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, these guys aren't getting a lot of experience. I know that was a big issue at your gym, Whamma, with a lot of your fighters back a couple years ago. It's a bit better now. It's still tough to get fights. And then now the UFC matchmakers are looking at all the Canadian talent. Although they possibly are UFC caliber fighters, they only have 2-0, 3-0 records, and the UFC looks
Yeah.
at that and says they're probably not quite ready without actually looking really too deep into who they are and who they fought. So it kind of goes full circle. You can't really blame the UFC for only signing one Canadian fighter since Misha Serkinov, and that signing was actually just tonight. That was Jonathan Munoz, who is stepping up on short notice on the Ottawa card. So again, it's a complete full circle.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if there was more promotions, there was going to be more talent, and as well as these guys to actually showcase themselves as exciting fighters. Like you said, you can't really blame the UFC because who are you going to take when you got a guy who's 6-0 and has potentially, let's say, 4 knockouts against the guy who's 2-0 from Canada, and who are you going to pick? Well, they're looking for stars, right? They're looking for your next Joel St. Pierre, your Sage Northcutt, guys like that who are going to draw like a big audience and are just potentially even polarizing. So we don't, as fighters, we don't even have a big opportunity to let our personality get out there. There's many different roles. There's Conor McGregor, Chael Sonnen, kind of more trash talking, more extravagant personalities. But then you also have the humble side of the Joel St. Pierres and guys like that who take another kind of, I don't even know so much strategy. It's just who they are, kind of dialed up to 11. So what our fighters need is they need these shows so we can actually take time to do interviews like this and get the chance to actually show our personality and hear ourselves, kind of market ourselves.
Yes, definitely. I 100% agree with you on everything you said regarding the Canadian local scene. It definitely needs work. I think it's getting better from what it was 2 years ago. I remember talking
Yeah.
to your head coach, Curtis. I texted back and forth with him, I want to say early last year, and he was telling me how Mary Hughes had been sidelined for 2 years. All these guys have been on the sidelines for so long. It's getting better with Prestige, Saturday night fights, fairly
Yeah.
active organizations also in Alberta, but it's still not necessarily where it could be.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't think it's quite where it could be, but it's nice to see it coming up and kind of regenerating it a little bit. I think, like I said, I think the oil hit us a little bit just in terms of the smaller towns because that is a premium audience and those guys get paid well out there. And if there's not much else to do, what are they going to check out? If they'll come check out fights, with that and the consistency of UFC shows, and they've been putting on some really good quality fight cards like these. So, and a lot of them are for free. So it's like it's kind of getting harder and harder to suck that money out of the audience.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. All right, Brad, appreciate you taking the time. Just one last question: how do you defeat TJ Laramie on Friday night?
You know what? I see this fight going many different ways. So the strategy is really coming out sharp and just doing my thing. He's a guy who has power, who's been to decision before, so he's definitely a game opponent. But I just think where I'm at, I'm comfortable anywhere on the ground, on the feet, trying to get out to decision or a fast first round. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just going to go in there and do my thing.
Awesome. Appreciate you taking the time. Before I let you go, just let my audience know where they can find you on social media, and if there's anyone you'd like to think you give a shout out to, now's your time.
So you can find me on social media on all platforms. Twitter, I have a Facebook athlete page, which I've just started up for this fight. That posts usually weekly videos and photos of just training or anything. So you can find me there. You can also find me on Instagram, and it's all at my name, at Brad Katona. Pretty easy to find. And as always, I'd like to thank my team for supporting me, and all the coaches, Curtis Brigham at Winnipeg Academy of Mixed Martial Arts, Marius from our gym, like you talked about, who's been sidelined for a little while before his last fight. You know, he's been helping me a lot with some extra pad work and just extra refining, as well as United Boxing and Ryan Savage, my old boxing coach, well, still current boxing coach, has been helping me out a ton too. So, you know, all my training partners who've been putting in the work, and you know, I just appreciate it, and thanks for